Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. How is everybody doing this evening? Hey there, Henry. How you doing today? We had another cold, blustery day here, but the weather is supposed to, guess, warm up. We're supposed to get some precipitation toward the end of the week. They don't know whether it's going to be rain or ice just yet. So maybe even thunderstorm if it gets really warm. Wouldn't that be something? Have a thunderstorm, a couple days before Christmas. But anyway, wanted to jump on here and have a little chat with you guys this evening. Give it a few minutes here to get everybody in. Hopefully, everybody is staying safe out there with all the craziness going on. Sucks, it's Christmas time. People want to get out. They want to enjoy, local festivals, and I mean, we got stuff around here where people plan all year to go to that stuff, and then what do you got? You got lunatics going around, causing problems in a lot of these different places. This last week here has been terrible for it. Attacks and stuff. We really got to keep our eyes open when we're going out in public nowadays. Hey, John. Hey, Captain Bart. It's going to be definitely a warm Christmas. Hey, Mark Torma. How you doing? Whatever Prepper. How are you doing? Yeah, they're talking about the sugar wrapping up a little bit earlier this year on the campaign than previous years. They were saying that Bay City is going to be done sometime in February, and then the other plants they're going to be afterward. Hey there, Sunset Heritage. Hey, Dangerous Freedom. Gallo, how you doing? Hello from Australia. Yeah, terrible thing what happened there in Australia. You guys. I wish every law-abiding citizen in Australia had themselves a Glock 19, a shotgun, and an AR, so they could properly protect themselves from all the insanity that's going on in the world. Hey, Essential, Fluffy, Frontline Warrior. How are things in mid Michigan? We are expecting a change in weather here in mid Michigan coming up. Yeah. Something I wanted to mention quick here. I had somebody put that in the comments. They said they missed my little 5-10 minute videos I did where I kind of just discussed little morning chats with my coffee, and they missed those little 5-10 minute chats on whatever the update of the week is, depending on what the current affairs are and that kind of stuff. If you guys would like me to start doing that more often, again, I certainly can do that, especially after the holidays when I have a little bit more time. I can get on and how would you guys feel about a little 5 to 10 minute morning video a couple of times a week on top of my regular content? If you guys are interested in that, just kind of let me know. Hey there, L Dog. Patriot Preacher, how you doing? How's the possum stew coming along there? Yeah, morning chat would be great. Yeah, I'm thinking I might go back to doing that. Missed the last live, Michigan Silverback. Glad to have you here. L Dog, I would like that. Well, like I said, I'm going to see what I can do. See if I can, bring back that little morning coffee chats. I probably won't do it as a live though. I'll probably just do it as just a regular standalone video. Let everybody kind of know what's going on. But the big thing here that I've been kind of talking about the last probably 6 weeks or so is the economy and how it's slowing down. I can really see it now. I mean, there are a bunch of projects that I know about locally here that have been put on hold. There has been, problems with businesses here in Michigan. Ford's canceling out all electric pickup trucks, which I'm not sure why they did that in the first place, but there's going to be a lot of part suppliers and stuff. A lot of that stuff's all third party. A lot of those large manufacturers they don't make their own stuff, and a lot of that firearms are a lot like that too. That's how you can tell the quality of stuff. Typically the more in-house stuff that's made at a manufacturer and put into a product, the better quality that it is because they control every step of the manufacturing process. And I know that just from all the years being in, the firearms game. But vehicles are a lot like that too. If a vehicle is made, more parts are made by just the original place, they have a tendency to have better quality. At least that's what most mechanics that I know have told me. But Kellogg's got bought. Kellogg's is a big Michigan business, so that is something that whenever a European company buys an American company, it's usually never good. Go back to Daimler Chrysler. Daimler came in, bought a really profitable, decent. The R&D at Chrysler at the time was doing really good. Their pickup trucks had a really good reputation. And then Daimler kind of gutted the whole company, took what they wanted, took the money, took the cash that was put aside, and kind of basically screwed over the customers. And then they spun it off and sold whatever was left, whatever they didn't want, and then that went to Fiat. So it's like I said, I'm expecting basically economic issues for the whole of 2026, and I can see where that's going to are going to be starting to affect us here just right shortly. Unemployment is up. The unemployment numbers were what, like 4.5%, which is actually in the last 4 or 5 years, that's pretty high compared to what it has been. Job listings. I look at job listings locally here all the time, and I'm seeing those job listings are basically they're going down. They're going down, or the variety of jobs that are offered. That's all going down too. So it's going to be interesting what's going to all happen with that. But like I said, I can definitely see where there's going to be some kind of economic issues coming into this year coming up. Coney B, tech is getting hit hard here with the layoffs and the Austin. Yeah, and Austin and Houston. Um, I knew somebody that worked in Houston for quite a few years in the Houston area there, and they said they had, it was easy to find a job back then, but now probably not so much, especially because of all the integration of the different tech companies and stuff. Everybody wants to put more and more tech into stuff instead of less and less, which would make it more redundant for prepping minded folks like us. I gave up Chrysler after the whole K car fiasco. Yeah, yeah, like I said, there was a time when Chrysler was actually good there. My mom had terrible luck with Chrysler. She swore off Chryslers, but that's how it usually goes. You have something really good, some other company steps in, buys that, kind of takes over, and then stuff goes to crap. Firearms were a big one like that. Colt is the one that comes to mind. There was a time when you bought a Colt AR, um, like back the 2008, 9, 10 time frame there, up to maybe 2012 or 13. You were getting basically mil spec parts that were in there because Colt made all their stuff. And then, things change hands. CZ bought them. Things aren't quite like what they used to be because there were certain, processes and stuff they have to follow. And I've seen that with so many different companies, whether it's, knife companies or optic companies or automobiles or parts from the, parts manufacturers. They're always trying to cut corners on everything. Hey there, Karen. How you doing? Yeah, precious metals, copper's really been going up, so I've been told from the electrician people that I talked to, or in the plumbing guys. They were saying that they had to get I think it was 3/4 inch sticks of copper pipe for some plumbing job that they were doing, and they said that at one of the bigger box home improvement places, they were over $100 a stick for one of those. That's just crazy. $100 for a stick of copper pipe that's just, like I said, that's just insane. Chrysler couldn't build a transmission to save their lives. Yeah, um, we got that work truck, that Chevy 3500 at work. That's got that Allison transmission in it. And anybody that talks about towing and whatever, they all praise that Allison transmission. They said that's the best transmission that you can get. Yeah, Swiss Army knives are still decent. Yeah, that's because they make all their own stuff. That's kind of like case knives is the same thing. That if all the components are made in house, it's typically better stuff. Fluffy 10, I lost my job in September, didn't find one till the 1st of November, applied everywhere, only had 3 job interviews in that time. I was only offered the only job I took. Yeah, that reminds me of back like in 1992, you had to literally beg somebody for a job. That's how bad the job market was back then. And if you had a job, and then back then minimum wage was like 385, and if you got a job for like 550 an hour, that was like you were doing pretty darn good. And if you were making like 10 or $12 an hour someplace, that was a kick-ass job back in the day. Hey there, Bob Hunter, how are you? I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Get my duck some food. That's actually not a duck. That's actually a snow goose. And the snow geese out in Missouri, South Dakota, Arkansas, Nebraska, snow geese are basically considered a pest because they will literally strip a winter wheat field when it first comes up. That's when they're coming back down from the migration. And I seen it firsthand. The snow geese will land in a field, and there will be like a big, gigantic 2-acre brown spot in the middle of this winter wheat field because that's how many geese landed there, and they just picked everything clean. And snow geese are basically hated by the farmers out there because they destroy everything. So that poor guy there, he was taken about 2005 back when we went down to Missouri snow goose hunting in February. And that was a really good looking specimen. So I had that one mounted and I got him sitting there on you can't really tell, but I got a little heater back there. It's a little fake electric heater with a fake fire in it there. And he's been sitting on there along with my bear skull. You guys have never seen a bear skull. That is a bear skull that came off a 400-pound black bear that I got a few years back. And you see the crack there in the skull. I had to put that back together because I actually shot him like here. So then that broke the skull. And of course, the skull is what they have to measure to score black bear. And mine couldn't be scored because I shot him in the head. So that was the end of that. Yeah, I appreciate the super chat there, Bob Hunter. I appreciate that very much. I always get a lot from my subscribers. I probably get a lot more from them than I give to you guys. I really appreciate all the feedback that I get from the people I know online. And yeah, I wouldn't be near as good a prepper that I am today without the feedback that I've got from people online over the years. So I take what I know and I just fold that into the stuff that I learn and the stuff that I think people need to know. I try to do videos on all that stuff. I have been for a lot of years. I had a pop-up that came up on, I don't know, it was one of my YouTube notifications or something, that I actually started my channel in 2018. So it's been awesome. That looks like Keir Starmer's skull in there in the UK. That bad, huh? Yeah, that bad. The UK has always got issues going on, and a couple of folks that I talk to from like Scotland, Wales, that kind of stuff, they are always telling me about all the BS that's going on there in Great Britain. In fact, there's somebody that's actually over here right now. They came over here from the holidays. They're a younger person, and they told me flat out that rural Michigan here, where we're with a depressed economy and everything, is by far better than where they live there in southern England. So I found out that they are they don't have any love for the authorities over there. Basically, is what I was told. Dave told me I'm in England and it's bad. That's kind of what I heard. And there was another fellow that I worked with for a while. He was from Germany, from the Cologne area. And I said, yeah, I'd always like to go back to Germany because I got German ancestors and stuff. It'd be kind of cool to see, the Alps of Bavaria and drink a beer in Munich or something like that. But the thing that they told me is they said, yeah, you don't want to go to Europe right now. They basically told me Europe, no matter where you're at, is more or less a shit show right now. And they said, you better wait for a little bit. Hey there, Sutton's Days. I appreciate you stopping by. Sutton's Days has got a great channel. If you guys have never never jumped on her channel there. And if you want to learn about canning and that kind of stuff, that aspect of preparedness, she is basically the go-to. At least in my book, she is anyway. Hermit Hill, good to see you here. Dangerous free, and we don't like Canadian geese where they're from. They nest everywhere and they get mean. Yeah, and where we are here in Michigan, and we're constantly surrounded by water, we actually have year-round geese, and they're the ones that are the pain. The migrators, not so much, but the year-round geese are massive, massive pains. But they don't wholesale shoot them like they do the snow geese, because the snow geese, they just kind of destroy everything. They're very, very, very destructive when they get in those big flocks. And then you have all the subspecies. There's blue geese, there's Ross goose, there's different, I always thought blue geese were kind of cool looking too, but I never got one of those that I liked enough to get mounted. So that's how it goes. Uh, I'm in Scotland and it's even worse. Yeah, I believe that. I believe that, like I said, I've talked to different people, same thing with Scandinavia. I got a friend that lives in Sweden. He's actually an Arctic survival instructor. He was in the British military for quite a while, and then he immigrated to Sweden, basically because it was a neutral country, and he thought, you know what, this is a good place for me to crash out for retirement. Here is in Sweden, teach a few classes, and go from there. And then what happens? Sweden joins NATO. So that whole thing kind of backfired on him. But he said that there's places in Stockholm you just don't go. They are basically run by the people that are there. And he said that you just don't go to Stockholm. And he said a lot of the weapons and stuff that were used in the Yugoslavian Civil War are basically on the streets of Stockholm. And that was a thing that he was concerned about with the war in Ukraine. He's very concerned about those weapons in Ukraine finding their way into the rest of Europe when that conflict winds down there. All those secondhand weapons that are in Ukraine are going to find their way into the criminal syndicates and stuff that are in mainland Europe. And he said that he's almost sure that that's what's going to happen, because that's exactly what happened, after the Yugoslavian Civil War. Hey, following the light. Oh yeah, geese can be terribly mean. Yeah, you don't want to. That beak has got little tiny microscopic teeth in them, and if they latch onto you, you're definitely going to know it. And then they beat you with their wings. I was a kid. I grew up on a farm, so I got my butt kicked by geese quite a few times. But yeah, they'll latch on and they'll beat the hell out of you with their wings or something. Is there a difference in geese species taste? I like Canadian geese and duck better than I like snow geese. Snow geese, except when they were down here in the migrating pattern and eating the winter wheat and stuff and the stubble cornfields or whatever, they eat like a moss that's up in the tundra where they have their, I guess, where they have their youngins in the spring. And the snow goose meat is just flat. It doesn't have a lot of flavor. We used to say when we'd make snow goose, it tasted really good if you made it with a pound of bacon, because the bacon gave it some flavor. And I find that like Canadian geese and duck tastes better than the snow goose. Duck I like better than goose. Goose is kind of 50-50 a lot on how you make it. The biggest thing that I liked with goose meat was jerky. Because it's a real dark meat, dark, at least as dark as beef and venison, if not darker. We would strip that meat and we would brine it, and then we would make jerky out of it, just like beef jerky. Smoke it for 4 or 5 hours, dry it out, get a little smoke on it there. And once it was brined and smoked, it actually had a really good flavor. It tastes very similar to a beef jerky. And if I was going to get any larger quantities of Canadian geese in this day and age anymore, that's what I would do. I would definitely smoke them and make them into jerky. Uh, Swans, There's no hunting season on swans, although there seems like there's a lot of them. They don't nobody shoots swans. So what a swan tastes like, I have no idea. I know that those white swans, they have a lot of like a blue tint to their skin, or so I've been told, but I've never examined one up close. But they're big. They're even bigger yet than Canadian geese. Coney B, this is really mean, but my husband years ago, 35 years or more, got chased down by a mother goose watching her babies, and the dad jumped in, ran him down, and pecked the hair. His ears, yeah, yeah. You don't want to mess with a goose. Goose will mess you up. Is that a Canadian accent? I have no upper Midwest. Uh, we actually imported our accent over to Ontario in like 1965. I'm just joking, but yeah, I have the Canadian slash Yooper accent. I've been told I blend in. I blend in quite well when I go up to the UP. I can. How much you want for the minnows? There about $5 worth, eh? Yeah, I can blend right in some places. Canadian refugee. Yeah, more like Michigan right now, but Michigan is often referred to as southwestern Ontario. So dangerous freedom. I used to take geese to the butcher and have them made into beef sticks. Yeah, so that's very similar. No, Sutton, we you can't shoot swans. Swans are they're a protected species, so you cannot shoot them. And God help you if you do get caught shooting one, because they would absolutely rail you. There are certain things, if you get caught, shooting them, even if it's like an accident, like, because I don't know if people know this about hunting, but there's accidental kills all the time. And it doesn't matter what the season is, but ducks and geese, especially, because they're in flocks and you're shooting, you need to pick out one when you're shooting at it. But once those BBs leave the end of the shotgun, they go, wherever. And there's been lots of times when a non targeted species gets accidentally killed, collateral damage, so to speak. And that's the kind of stuff that you really gotta really pay attention. You really gotta know your target. And then too, with ducks and geese, there's certain species you're only allowed one or none of this one at a particular time. You got to know all that stuff. You got to know what you're shooting at. When it's dark, rain, and windy, whatever. You're supposed to know the species of that duck before you pull the trigger. So it can be rough. Hey, MR, how's the knee? My knee kind of sucks. Have a great Christmas. Have a happy holidays and a great Christmas to you too as well, Susan. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to have a knee replacement at some time, because this surgery did not work. It really didn't work. I'm not near where I should be, I figure, at this point, unless something, comes around. Oh, that's cute. What language does a goose speak? Portuguese. I know Portuguese sausage is pretty darn good. I had some of that. I can't remember where it came from though, but that was actually pretty good. Sutton's Days, our local paper reports when swans are injured, so I didn't think so. Apparently, they mate for life. They do. They're just like mourning doves. Mourning doves are another thing that mates for life. Yeah, people from Minnesota. Minnesota's got a real hard accent too. If you're in the right places, they kind of draw out the words. I'm not sure what but some hard ice cream. But yeah, I've heard that one too. Hermit Hill. I cut down some old wood this morning. Went up to the dense woods and took 6 squirrels this afternoon. You hunt squirrel? Oh yeah, we hunt squirrel. Squirrel is one of the first things. Squirrel opens the 15th of September and it goes until March. Although typically most squirrels, they don't really hibernate, but they kind of go through a dormant stage. When the weather's really really cold, they curl up in their nest and they stay there. So actually, the best squirrel hunting is usually from middle of September to the end of October, because by then, the end of October, the leaves are coming off the trees. They're easier to spot and whatnot. And then really sunny, nice days in the wintertime. So if you've had like a really cold snap and then all of a sudden you get like a 35-degree day, it's blue skies, sun's outside, those squirrels that were kind of quasi hibernating, they will wake up, come out, they will start to feed and stuff. So then that's actually a good time to hunt them. And as a rule of thumb, with those small animals and small game, upland game, what like if it's a nice day out, if it's a day when you feel say, hey, it's nice out, I'd like to go out and do something, that's the day you should hunt because animals are the same way. If it's snowing, rainy, crappy, those upland animals, they're going to just hang tough. They're not going to do anything. They're going to hang in right where they're at. They're not going to come out and meander around and stuff. But if you have a nice day, they will come out, they will feed, they'll sun themselves, and then the hunter has a better chance of actually getting something. Hey, Washburn Billy, how you doing? Get it done before it's too late, your knee. Yeah, I just not too keen on them cutting into my bone. I guess that's the biggest thing with it, poking around in the muscle and stuff is one thing, but when you start cutting into bone, I don't know. I get concerned about the complications of stuff like that. I would hunt squirrels if I ate them. Squirrel, actually, I like squirrel just braised. Cook it in a cast iron pan, get it a little bit brown, put a little chicken broth or something in there, maybe cut up a carrot and a potato, put a lid on it, and let it simmer until the meat falls off the bone. Sometimes squirrel can be really tough if it's not cooked right. But we cooked a lot of squirrels when I was a kid, and they work good in the oven too. Like you can take a squirrel and lay a slice of bacon over top of it to give it a little bit of fat, a little bit of flavor, and put that in the oven in an old roaster and let that just go for an hour or two. And that's the same thing. That'll meat will braise and it'll break down. It'll be a lot more tender. It takes a year or so to get back from normal after knee surgery. I've had a cadaver cuticle ligament done and I was out for a long time. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm afraid of. I don't really want to leave my place of employment hanging for 3 months or whatever it takes to recover from something like that. Candace, I was just talking about the meanness level between geese and swans. Definitely not to hunt them. Swan nests where I go fishing at, I like to observe their behavior at a distance. I never had any knee surgery, but today's technology is incredible. Might get it done when you're young. Yeah, it would be something that I would probably, if I'm going to get one done, it's probably going to be in the next year or two. But I'm just kind of waiting. They said, sometimes it takes longer for what I had done to heal. So I'm kind of giving it a little bit of time. So hopefully I can figure out what's what. Henry and Morgan never had knee surgery, but today's technology. They told me that the knee replacements are up to 30 years now. They last 30 years compared to the 20 years that they told me years ago. Squirrel tastes like chicken, very, very small chicken. Sutton's Days. Yeah, we used to call it, to get the kids to eat the squirrel back in the day, we called it tree chicken. What are you having tonight, Dad? Tree chicken. And then we never said no more. And the kids ate it. They didn't. But my guess is they probably wouldn't have if they would have known it was squirrel. Yeah, and squirrel is a lot is a sort of a darker meat. A lot of the wild game has a darker look to it, except like frogs, snapping turtles. That's actually white meat, almost like what chicken breast is. Mom got a knee a couple years ago. It was painful for a long time. Yeah, I believe that. I found a great pain reliever, external use. Coarsely grind avocado pits in a blender, put them in a quart of mason jar, 6 pits for a quart, 3 pints, topped with rubbing alcohol. Let it sit for a couple of weeks. So then, what is that? That's like that must be like a tincture. Then, would you rub that on like a liniment, or how does that all work? How does that all work? My partial knee replacement went well, Mr. Bumblehill. 15 days, and I'm off with a walker and only using a cane occasionally. PT is a butt kicker, though. Ouch. Good luck with yours. I appreciate that, Mr. Bumblehill. I have had people tell me that the partial knee replacements is actually better than a full one. And I've got one guy I work with, he swears by it because he had a partial done and he said he's been great ever since then, whenever he recovered. But I'm still kind of foggy on what's a partial knee replacement compared to a whole knee replacement. That's something the next time I go to the doctor, I'm going to ask him. Maybe they can give me some clarification on that. Patriot Preacher wife had both knees replaced, not at the same time, worked out well. I had a couple guys say that they were going to have both knees done at the same time. And I'm like, man, that's nuts. You'd be in a wheelchair then. You'd be able to get around at all. How do you prepare a snapping turtle? To dress a snapping turtle, you basically, I'm gonna get explicit now. You grab its jaw with vice grips or a channel lock, and you have to pull its head out of the shell, and you need to cut its head off. That's how you dispatch it. Then you're going to hang it up by its tail, and it's got that breastplate. There'll be a breastplate where you have to cut around on the bottom to open that up. Well, then you'll have your four legs, and that has to be skinned, and that meat looks basically like chicken thighs. And once you have the legs and stuff out, there's also meat on the inside of the shell, and that looks very similar to what a boneless, skinless chicken breast looks like. So you would take all that meat out and you would basically refrigerate that or soak it until you're ready to cook it. And then turtle soup was always popular. I've had it parboiled and then put on a grill. I've had it in soup, and then I've had it kind of like shredded. And it's very much like poultry. Snapping turtle is very there. There's not much difference between like chicken and snapping turtle. They say rabbit tastes like chicken too, and it sort of does because it's more of a white meat, but turtle is a little bit different. And I think probably the best way I liked it was parboiled a little bit with some garlic, bay leaves, that kind of thing, and then thrown on the grill, maybe with a little touch of like Old Bay seasoning on it. But that's the way that I've had it already, and it was actually pretty good. You have a good night, Sutton's Day. Take care. I've had turtle sausage before. They make a fish sausage around here, and I've tried that, and I don't really care for that. I don't know why they just can't smoke the fish, but they take the meat off and they put some seasoning in it. They put it in a casing and then they smoke it. And I never cared for that. But like a regular smoked whitefish or smoked sucker or something like that, that's fine. I could eat that all day long. But something about that fish sausage, I don't really care for that. I'm now sporting such a train wreck, very chronic pain for real. I hope that they figure something out for you. I've known so many people over the years that had chronic back pain or chronic joint pain, knees and hips and stuff. And I'll tell you what, that's miserable because you can never escape from it. It's always something. Hey, happy girl. Hey, Tammy, how you doing? Back from Thailand. Grass isn't greener on the other side. Love Michigan. Awesome. Southern Minnesota has a Wisconsin accent. Northern Minnesota sounds more like Scandinavian. That's good to know too. Susan Baker works within seconds. Bone deep lasts for hours. I'll have to keep in mind. Maybe I'll have to save some avocado pits and go ahead and do that. Yeah, fish sausage. Like I said, some people buy it, but is Lexi's Fish Market still open? That I don't know. We actually have a commercial fishing operation that is in Bayport, Michigan, and it placed like almost closed down, but now they've opened it up and it's become sort of a lot of the well-to-do people that come up to their cottages and stuff around here. They will go in there and they'll pay, $25 a pound or whatever for yellow perch or whitefish. Whitefish used to be like $1 a pound on the round, and now it's like, $20. It's just the price of that stuff has went up so much. But they still pull fish out of the lake old school, so that's kind of a nice thing to have around here. But like I said, it's become more of a rich person's thing compared to. I mean, I remember when guys would go out there to the fish market and they would literally get tubs full of fish right off the dock, and they buy them whole, and then they would take them and smoke them or freeze them, fillet them all out and freeze them in water jugs, that kind of stuff. And that's where they would get their fish for the year on top of, the stuff that they caught regularly. But that was a pretty common thing. Surgeon said less than 20% are eligible for a partial replacement. Well, maybe that's the deal. Maybe that is the difference. You need to do research. Mako knee replacements. My son-in-law is involved with those working first striker. He claims really great results. Fish sausage is like cabbage sausage. LOL. Yeah. I think that they were close to you. Lexi's Fish Market. I don't remember. I'm not sure where that's at. What town that was in. I don't recall ever seeing that. I know that like there were fish markets up in the UP. St. Ignace had one. Munising had one. Um, like down by the bay there in Munising, where Munising Bay comes in there. But I don't remember off the top of my head. There's a couple places around here, a couple of the meat shops. They host like fish days or whatever you want to call it, seafood days, where they come in and they bring a whole bunch of seafood and stuff in for people to buy, but it's not because they don't carry seafood and fish and stuff on a regular basis like that. Essential, definitely warm in Thailand, not as warm as Michigan, eh? Maybe it was Pinconning. It could be. Pinconning still got that cheese place up there. We go in there every once in a while too when we're in the area. Up north, Michigan has some sketchy looking jerky outlets and in some of the small towns, but I appreciate a good smoked trout. Yeah, what is it? Mansalona there's that stretch you go through where they plant the potatoes and there's a little gas station market, whatever you want. There's bars on all the windows and stuff. Just because you're out in a rural area doesn't mean that it's not sketchy. So that's something that I always keep in mind. Gustafson's in Brevoort, I've had their smoked fish already. That's on US 2, a little bit west of us, St. Ignace, and they actually have quite good smoked stuff. I've had their fish there. I've had jerky and beer stick and that kind of stuff there, and I've always thought that that was probably some of the better stuff that I had up there in the UP. What is the most prevalent eating fish taken out of the grates? Are they all different? I'm in Texas. The sport fish are yellow perch, walleye are your two main ones that people like to sport fish for. Walleye has become extremely popular, and the population of walleye has exploded over the years because of the zebra mussel. The zebra mussel filters the water and makes the water clearer. Well, then that makes the walleye a more efficient predator, and they can catch more fish. And it actually was very derogatory to like yellow perch. The yellow perch numbers went down as the walleye numbers went up. Salmon, people will fish salmon, and we got a couple like Port Sanilac is has a long um, like break wall. People can walk out on the break wall and they can cast for salmon and lake trout. Lake trout is something that people fish quite a bit around here. Although there's some people that don't like it because it's a fairly greasy fish. Whitefish is fished both sport fishing and commercial fishing. It's probably one of the more popular commercial fishing fish around here. Sucker run in the spring, and if you get sucker out of cold water, like when they first run in end of March, first part of April, they're actually really good. And sucker fish are what the old timers would actually can. They would get large amounts of sucker fish in the spring when they would run, and they would can them, and then they would smoke them. Carp is another one that people will smoke, but it's considered a junk fish. They do a lot of bow fishing. They shoot them with bow and arrow, and then they typically will give them to farmers so they can use them for fertilizer. Because once a carp gets too big, they're not really desirable for eating anymore. But those are, and then of course you have all the panfish. You have bass are fish, of course. Walleye and perch are considered better eating than bass. A lot of the bass fishermen, they don't really eat the bass. They kind of catch and release. They do it more for like the sport of it. And then all the panfish are generally good. Anything from crappie to rock bass, bluegill, pumpkin seed, sunfish, all that. They're all actually pretty decent. You can actually catch those a little bit easier in the shallows. And crappie is actually very good. I'd say crappie would be number 3 compared to like the walleye and the yellow perch. And pike is actually very good too. Again, that's a large predator fish, but pike has to be cleaned a certain way. You just don't clean a pike like you do other fish. I know a lot of people fish catfish and bullhead too, but again, that's not so much for eating as it is for just catch them, because catfish get rather large. So that's probably kind of the take on the fishing. Yeah, walleye is the steak of the Great Lakes. Walleye is excellent, and trout. They do catch trout, but yeah, they have to go um, like the lake trout, but like up north in the different designated trout streams and stuff like rainbows and brookies and stuff like that. But where I'm at here, it's pretty much just lake trout and then salmon out on the bay. You're not going to catch, steelhead. But like the little rainbow trouts that you cook over your campfire and the cast iron, that's more of an up north thing in the small little rivers and creeks and designated trout streams. Hey there, Sean. How you doing? How's everything up your way? My father-in-law used to make pike. He would clean it, chunk it up, and then he would simmer it, boil it, take it out of the boiling water, and put a little lemon pepper on it and some melted butter. And oh my God, was that good? That was just amazing. And that's actually a really good way to make lake trout too, because it will actually take some of the fattier, some of the greasiness out of the lake trout. And I've done that already where I boiled the lake trout, take it, I mean, took the chunks of fish out, and then just put a little garlic butter on top of it. It's actually really good. Yeah, carp is pretty much considered fertilizer. I mean, if you tie into a big old carp, sometimes they're fun to catch, but as I really wouldn't consider them a top shelf eating fish. Yeah, bullhead again. That comes down to cleaning it. If you know how to clean a bullhead, my mother could actually clean bullhead quite well. And I remember having bullhead and catfish when they would go out because that was more subsistent back in the day. Smelt. Oh yeah, smelt. That's a big thing too. The smelt runs. People will go out with the wire nets, and when the water temperature is just right, and the smelt run. A lot of people like smelt. My dad used to love smelt. If they had a smelt dinner somewhere at a whatever at the American Legion or whatever, my dad would always go and get that stuff. He absolutely loved it. Just watched a documentary that said there's magma moving under Lake Superior and Lake Huron, and they thought that was done about 100,000 years ago. So they are a bit worried. All right, I'm going to get into geology now. This probably ain't going to be prepping what I'm talking about, but the Western Lake Superior Basin is a collapsed caldera. And if you know anything about Lake Superior, Isle Royal sits up by Wisconsin, Canada, and then the Keweenaw that comes off the main part of the UP sticking out up into Lake Superior, and all that Lake Superior in between that was a caldera at one time, and that collapsed in on itself. So if you're driving along the Keweenaw and you look like the rock formations will actually look like they're folded down, and that's because that caldera collapsed, and that's why it's so there's so many minerals in the Keweenaw, stuff like copper. That's why there was literally millions of tons of copper taken out of Michigan. There was actually veins of copper back 5,000 years ago. The copper was right on the surface, so the indigenous tribes, they could take that copper and beat it into whatever tool that they needed to make it into, because they didn't even have to refine it. The copper was, and that's because that was part of that collapsed caldera. So there was a lot of geological activity that took place in Michigan. In fact, they've said that the Keweenaw and Isle Royal are actually the oldest mountain range in North America. It's so old, it's been weathered down, not like the Appalachians and the Rocky Mountains. It hasn't been weathered down as much as um, the high parts of like the Keweenaw and stuff. And that's why, Michigan Tech up there's a really big rock and mineral museum that's connected to Michigan Tech, and they have all kinds of native copper in there. And you can actually pan for gold and stuff up in the Keweenaw and in the Upper Peninsula along them rivers. And silver, there was silver mining up there as well too. So you can see this is all, copper, silver, gold, all this stuff was up there. Iron ore. There's a ton of iron ore taken out of the Upper Peninsula over the years. In fact, our friends that are up there, the one place they're actually like 2 years ago, they started up taking iron ore out of that area again, because that iron ore was so pure, it makes the best steel for artillery pieces. And they call it battleship ore because that's how pure that it is. And because of all the wars and conflicts and everything that's been going on, they've actually started mining that again. So there's a certain amount of military applications for that stuff. Yeah, I like sucker. I've always liked sucker, Sean. And like I said, when Mom used to can sucker, or another way, they would flay it out, make sure there were no Y bones or anything in that, and put a little cornmeal on that and fry it. It was like in March and April when the water was still cold. You couldn't tell the difference between that and like store bought fish. In fact, it was probably better. Hell, dog, never knew that. Learn something new every day. Hey, I just try to be if I know something that I think people need to know, I try to um, try to pass that on. That's why you walked into the water to the island. You're crazy. Yeah, Karen was there when I forded a little section of rolled my took my shoes off, tied the laces in a knot, hung them over my neck, and I forded across a little bit of Lake Superior so I could get onto an island so I could hike around the island. And that's a big time no now. They have big signs there. You're not supposed to do that anymore. But I did it a couple of times. It was an awesome little hike too. I even see that was really I think the first time I ever seen a peregrine falcon in the wild was doing that. Oh yeah, the ditches. Yeah, people there's been people that have gotten smelt pretty much anywhere as long as like up along the lake Huron shoreline. There's places where people different little creeks and stuff come out there and where they can get smelled out of them. Yeah, smelting was a big thing. So many people say Michigan is boring and uninteresting. That's because they ain't been to the right places and don't let people know about it. We got enough people here. We don't need more people coming out into our little rural areas here and kind of ruining stuff. That's the biggest thing lately is just the last 5 years. Just so many people have moved out here to the rural areas. It's kind of not quite what it used to be. Uh, Waiters in a landing net. Yep, and a 5 gallon pail to dump everything into. Hey, American, how you doing? Facebook ruined my steelhead spots. That's the same thing with waterfalls up in the UP. We used to hike waterfalls. You go back to these waterfalls, you could tell there was nobody there for days on end. Now you go back there, there's 7 people there with cameras on tripods taking pictures of stuff. It's like, is there no place sacred anymore that I can go where I'm not, running into all these people? And and I've noticed that with the UP too, especially in the last 5, 6 years, there's areas that there was like nothing. And now you drive through there and there's like roads put in and there's rolls of telephone poles and wire and stuff going back. And I'm like, that's used to be all, rural wilderness. And now everything's getting tamed. Michigan is closed. Please continue on to Minnesota. I don't know. I was in a couple spots in Minnesota that was pretty cool. Northern Wisconsin's pretty nice. The hiking websites and apps ruined all the best spots. Only locals knew. Well, the thing of it is people want easy access to everything. So I found that the best spots to still go to are typically off the beaten path. If you got to walk to it and it's more than 5 miles, most people don't want to do that. If it's more than about a mile walk, they don't want to go back that. So sometimes you just got to walk a little bit further to get back into some of those places. But those are kind of the best places to try your gear and check out your equipment, make sure it works. It's hard to test everything in your own backyard. But I mean, the backyard's a place to start, but those 5 to 10 mile hikes can really tell you whether whether your pack is too heavy or if you don't, you're not wearing the right clothing for the weather environments and stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of that stuff. Uh, I always was told we'd move to Kentucky. I know a couple different people moved to Kentucky. They like Kentucky. I have never been to Kentucky though. Thinking about it, I've never been further south than Indiana. Yeah, I've never been to Kentucky. Uh, no, I didn't get any deer. I didn't hunt much. Of course, I take that back. I did get a roadkill deer, but I didn't hunt much because when my knee was really bothering me, I didn't want to crawl 16 to 18 feet up in a tree to bow hunt. And then when gun hunting rolled around, I did sit out a couple of days. I really didn't see too much, but sitting out in that cold really bothered because that was only like maybe 2 weeks after I had that knee surgery. Boy, that cold cut right into there and that ache like hell. And I mean, I even had my knee up against the heater and stuff, and it kind of wasn't worth it. And then too, the way with crossbows and stuff, now most of the deer are killed off in October. By the time gun hunting rolls around, it's not the same hunting as what it was 20 years ago. East Kentucky and Tennessee are nice. The laws are a little better in Tennessee. Yeah, I've been told that Eastern Tennessee and Eastern Kentucky are really kind of the more desirable places to go. I bought a drift boat to get away from the Yahoos. That's a good idea too. Yeah, I think Michigan is actually a well is an underrated state for preparedness because I mean we have tons of agriculture here. We grow anything from potatoes to cucumbers to sugar beets on top of all the different beans that they grow and all the different wheat and corn, and then there's all kinds of dairy and livestock operations around here. So I'm in an area where I'm kind of blessed with food. And as a general rule, most of the people in Michigan that are out in the rural areas have a certain preparedness mindset, especially if you grew up in those situations. I mean, we still have the large, urban areas like Detroit and stuff that have their own set of issues. But I mean, we got fairly decent health care in Michigan. I mean, we got U of M, we got Ascension, we got a couple of the larger, hospital. U of M is probably the biggest. This is the one that people talk about the most as far as hospital and stuff goes. I mean, the northern Michigan is still kind of semi-secluded in different spots. We got access to the lake, so we got access to fresh water. But you got to be used to the winters, and you got to be used to some of the things that go around here. But I do think Michigan has a lot really going for it. But it's never brought up. It's not like Montana and down south and stuff. I am trying to get out of Michigan for East Tennessee or Western North Carolina. Hey, those are good places to go. Those are good places to go. Hey there, Sunset. I miss Michigan, but I love Tennessee. Yeah, you guys are in West Tennessee there. I'm just a Michigan guy. I don't think I'm ever going to leave Michigan. Uh, the laws in North Carolina are crap compared to Tennessee. It's easier to mind your own business, be left alone in Tennessee. Gotta get yourself a place up there in the hollers, but then you have to blend in with the locals. The locals got to trust you. If the locals don't trust you, and that's kind of what's kept me where I'm at here. There's been different times where we thought about moving up north where it's a little bit more rural, but then you're looking at you got to start over. You got to start reestablishing yourself. And boy, at my age, I don't know. I'm getting kind of old to reestablish myself in that stuff. How long can you keep water in its original plastic container? That I don't really know the answer to because I actually have stored water here that's in plastic containers, but I would filter all of that stuff before I used it. I have filters and I have ways to, purify water and stuff here. I I don't really rotate water because, it's a big job to rotate, 50, 80 gallons of water. So I just make sure I have good filtering and good water processing stuff here. And then how I basically take care of that problem. Uh, Back door. Lived in Michigan 60 plus years, not going anywhere. I'm just behind you by a couple of years, and I guess I don't feel the need to move just yet. I've always made it work here, and it's where I have my roots, so that's kind of where I'm staying. Hermit Hill, I'd like to know more about your area. I'm here in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, and my family dates back to Jamestown. Well, in a nutshell, southern Michigan, if you're out of the cities, is basically agricultural until you get up to like Houghton Lake, which is in the middle of the lower peninsula. From there, it becomes more wooded and it's more rural. There are some really expensive areas to live, like the west part of the lower peninsula. You get it to Traverse City, Petoskey, Charlevoix. Those places are all very wealthy areas. The upper peninsula is really desirable because there's only about 300,000 people that live in the entire Upper Peninsula, and most of those people that live in those areas. They're centered around certain areas that are up there. You have Houghton Hancock, you have Sault Ste. Marie, you have the Marquette area, which is, Negaunee, Ishpeming is all right there. You have the Iron Mountain area where there's, a couple different towns that are basically right in a line there. And the rest of it's pretty much rural. So, you're out in, fire trails and woods and that kind of stuff. But the southern part of Michigan really is big in agriculture. So, that gives you plenty of opportunities to source your food locally. And like I said, we have plenty of fresh water here. A lot of the people, rural people, have uh, really a preparedness mindset, which I think is good. Like I said, you wouldn't think of Michigan as being like this preparedness minded area, but you know what? A lot of the people that live in rural Michigan and have been there for a long time really have kind of preparedness in their DNA. Yeah, there's deer, and then there's deer too. Yeah, there's a lot of hunting and fishing. I mean, the Great Lakes has lots of fish in it. There's been certain things that they've done. They got like fishery programs. They release a lot of fish and a lot, especially in a lot of lakes and stuff. Whether or not those fish would all be there at a massive SHTF event, I don't know. There'd be probably die off in some of that. But as a general rule, you can subsistence, fish and hunt a little bit to supplement what you already have. And most of the people that started deer hunting, when I was younger, it was more for subsistence than it was for like trophy hunting, where now deer hunting's become more like trophy hunting. When I was a kid, if you got a permit to shoot a doe, that was something. You had something kind of important there because you knew you were going to put some meat in the freezer if you had a doe permit. And now everything is geared more toward antlers. People want to shoot nice bucks and they want to brag about it. It's not so much about subsistence, taking care of yourself, supplementing your food and stuff for the winter, like it was when I was a kid growing up. Down here in southeast Michigan, it's turning into subdivision apartment buildings like solar fields. Don't look nothing like it doesn't around here either. There were areas, stands of woods and stuff that they've clear cut, and it's just become more urbanized, even out here in the country. I go to some of those towns in the northern part of the Lower Peninsula. You could just tell that so many more people have moved up there, and that's sort of the big thing that we're dealing with out here in the country now. Is so many people have gotten out of the cities. Now the infrastructure isn't quite good enough to handle all the extra population. So then that falls back more onto the local residents and stuff. Like up in Munising, I was reading something this spring. All the rich people want to go up to Munising and spend their time, but then all the businesses, like the stores and the restaurants and stuff like that, the people that work in those, they can't pay the $1,500 a month rent for a one bedroom apartment like the rich people coming up there to spend the weekend or whatever. And people were saying, you want all these services, but that only pay $10 to $15 an hour, but then you can't afford any place to stay. All the local people that work in those places don't have any place to stay. So it's kind of nobody, nobody wants to fill in the gaps of those employment places. And then, the local people can't find housing. They can't find a house that's reasonable. They can't, make payments on it. And where there are places to rent, they're ridiculously high because it's all geared toward the tourist. But then, when people are on vacation and they're up there and they want to spend money, they want to go to restaurants but then there's nobody working in these restaurants. The restaurants are closing at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because there's nobody there to work because they can't afford to live there. So there's problems when a bunch of people get out of the city and they move into the country that you hear on all the prepping channels. That sounds good in theory, but in practice, it's a much more it's not as good as what it sounds like. Immigrants. I carry it every day, Patriot. It's my everyday carry. 44 Bulldog, eh? 44 special? Are those 44 specials AA there, or are they Magnums, 44 Magnums? And what do? You download them a little bit, or do you carry full bore in that? Uh, I had a 44 Magnum once. I never cared for shooting. It was a Ruger Super Blackhawk with a 7.5-inch barrel. I originally got it because I thought I was going to hunt with it, and it was just brutal to shoot. And I finally, after a while, I let it go. It just wasn't. I didn't enjoy going out and shooting it, so I keep. But a 44 Special wouldn't be as hard to shoot as those 44 Magnums are. I just I used to like 45 ACP. I carried a 45 ACP for years and years and years, but I've kind of fallen away from that, carrying a smaller 9 now. But 45 ACP, that was my go-to for because I did so much stuff in the outdoors. You know, we were hiking and everything else. I wanted a hard, hard-nosed bullet that could, stop something if I had to shoot something. So that's why I always carried that. Um, I always carried a 45 Buffalo bore loads. Yep. Well, I really appreciate everybody stopping by here for this pop-up, and I will see what I can do about doing shorter, more current events driven videos after the holidays here. See if I can't jump in here and give you guys a video every other day or something like that, just talking about kind of how the world is going. And of course, you guys got any questions or if there's anything that you want me to, elaborate on, if I feel comfortable, discussing stuff, throw it in any of the comments of any of the videos. I read all the comments, so I will see if I can't cater some videos toward the stuff you guys like too, because we're all in this together. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys taking a little time to stop by here tonight and share an evening with me. But I hope you guys all have a good week here. I will be back. I will do a live stream on Sunday this week. And as far as everything goes right now, we are still good to go for that. I appreciate all you guys out there. Appreciate you, Monkey Food Garden, for modding for me as well. I always appreciate the help from you guys. But anyway, you guys take care out there and have a good one.